Hello and welcome to the NOTstalgia podcast.
A podcast where we discuss the retelling or continuation of pop culture favorites as seen through a queer and feminist lens.
My name is Eric Lefebvre.
And my name is Jessica Tercero.
And this week we have a special guest, Cole Dupzyk. Welcome to the podcast. What's up?
Hey, everybody. Woo! I'm so excited to be here.
Welcome to the show and welcome to the
for me.
Muppets episode of the NOTstalgia podcast. So, you love the Muppets.
I do love the Muppets, yeah.
What is your history with the Muppets? Where are you coming from Muppet-wise?
So, okay, we'll take it back. Like, I went
Start
to
at the beginning. Give us the thesis. Give us the 20 pages.
The floor is yours.
The floor is yours.
So, I went to like a really weird small private school for pretty much my entire education up until I graduated and went to college. And we weren't like allowed to watch a lot of movies, especially when I was younger. Like once I reached like 13, 14, I could watch whatever I wanted. But part of like the whole school philosophy was like less like media and stuff. And so I would have like certain things that I would watch or like certain things that I would just have that would be on repeat because I didn't have access to just a ton of media or anything like that. So one of those things was Muppet Treasure Island, which is my favorite Muppet movie.
Yeah.
And kind of like existed in my like 7-year-old brain as like a thing that I liked. And like as I got older and like grew into college, I just like kind of realized how much I loved the Muppets and how much of like a part of my identity that had became. And so kind of had like a Muppets reawakening after that when I realized, oh my God, there was like all these old movies that we had on iTunes, like my sister and I would watch. Like when you used to buy movies on iTunes, like what a weird concept, right?
Yeah.
So we had like the Treasure Island one. We had the Great Muppet Caper. We had Muppets in Space, which was like the weird 2000s one.
That was the Gonzo story, right?
Yeah. So it just tons of Muppets stuff. And then I got to college and I'm doing like animation stuff. And then I'm like, with this like new knowledge, I feel like I can see the like crazy, like how awesome the Muppets are and like how brilliant they are and like what an amazing thing that Jim Henson and like everyone created. And I kind of got like that new appreciation. So kind of my Muppets, and then it all led to this.
Oh,
that Rizzo.
My Rizzo tattoo.
Ah, yes!
Incredible.
I love Rizzo.
I know it
so
looks
much.
really good too. Like the line, it's a great tattoo.
So now now it's on me.
Forever.
Permanently.
Forever. The Muppets will be with you forever.
I feel like I've never met a Muppet that I didn't like. Even like some of the weird stuff. I mean, going back and watching the Muppet TV show can be a little bit tough at certain points. I'm not sure if you've gone back and rewatched that. But basically everything, like I watched the Muppets as a kid and I was like, yes, I'm into this. This is so cute. And then I remember when the new Muppet movie, the Jason Segel movie came out, and I was like, I had kind of forgotten about the Muppets for a minute, and I went and watched that on Thanksgiving in the theater, and I was just so fucking happy. I don't remember, I don't know, I was sitting there in the theater, and I was just openly weeping, like watching, like, you know, when they start doing the show again and they, you know, seeing the different angles of like the television show like come out where they're all like, it's time to play the music, right? And I'm like, and I was like crying. And then Rainbow Connection, fucking cried, like the whole thing. And then I started to like go back and rewatch a lot of the Muppet movies and just fell in love all over again. And then another Muppet cry moment for me. There's a lot of them. I was at Comic-Con one year and I got into, do you guys remember they did the TV show for a minute where it was like kind of like an Office ripoff, and it wasn't very good, unfortunately, because I feel like the humor was not very, it wasn't really Muppety. It was like kind of like more weird and adult.
Was it the same time they did Muppet Babies? Like when that started?
Was it like 2015 or something?
Yes.
Then?
Yeah. And
I don't remember.
It was like 2015-ish, and they were doing this, and I don't know, it didn't really hit me. It didn't feel like Muppety to me. But before that came out, I was in the panel, and all of the puppeteers were there. Like, and I was 50 feet away from them, and they were talking about this. And they had like maybe 10 minutes of like structured question and answers. And then they were like, cool. And then within like they each one started bringing up a different Muppet. So here's Kermit, and here's Fozzie, and here's Miss Piggy, and here's Rizzo. And they would like switch them out and everything. So there's like all of the puppeteers are there bringing out all of like my favorites. And I fucking cried because I'm 50 feet away from the Kermit, and it was just incredible. And then like they opened it up for question and answer, and like so the questions consisted of like, you know, a woman went up there and Pepe was trying to hit on her, and then the guy behind her was like her brother, and like was like, I know how to cook king prawn, and he's like, oh, right. But what made me cry, like just go like there was an audible one of those like oh moments with the entire audience. This little girl went up there, and she was probably about 5 years old, and she looked at Fozzie Bear and she said, tell a joke, Fozzie. And the whole fucking audience just like was just like broken at that moment. And he
That's so
like
cute.
even the puppeteer, even him and Fozzie, right, because they're both right there, was just like and like had to like recalibrate because was not expecting that. Oh, just so wonderful. And the joke that he told was, why couldn't the bike stand up on its own?
Why?
Because it's too tired. Waka waka.
Legend. He's a legend.
That's really cute.
Oh, it
See,
was so cute.
I have almost no history with the Muppets. I know I've seen Treasure Island. I know I've seen a couple of the movies, including Muppets in Space. At some point, I vaguely remember them. So I never I have almost no history. So see, seeing these two movies was my first time seeing them.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So I'd never seen the original movie. I'd never seen because I remember when the 2011 one came out and everyone was talking about it, like, oh yeah, it's like really good. And I mean, I'm a fan of is it Seagal or Siegel?
I think it's Siegel.
It's like Siegel?
Siegel.
I'm a big fan of Jason Siegel. I'm a big
Like Steven Seagal.
Like Steven Seagal, yeah. See, that's what I'm thinking. That's why I'm confused. Jason Segel, I'm a big fan of his and was, and like with Forgetting Sarah Marshall and like that whole thing. And then even like as a kid seeing him in like SLC Punk, I was like, oh yeah, like I love that guy.
Oh, fuck,
great.
he's in that. I forgot.
Remember, he's like the big nerdy guy who like pushes people around. He's great.
Yeah.
I really liked him, so I was like, "Oh wow, he wrote and is starring in this. That's amazing." But I never saw it. I just never went to see it. So this was great. I'm really excited to talk about them. What a treat!
What a treat! Should we do it? Should we start with
Yeah.
the first one?
Let's do it.
Kermit the Frog is a content optimist who dreams of spreading joy and seeing all the magnificent things that life has to offer. In rows a big Hollywood talent agent who tells Kermit they're looking for a frog just like him to be the next big movie star. So it's off to California he goes. Along his trek, he soon realizes that the world is a dangerous frog leg eating place, and the face of danger is Doc Hopper, a greedy restaurateur and ethicless capitalist. Kermit then runs into Fozzie Bear at a raucous restaurant where he's doing an open mic, and the two flee from Doc following a brawl bar. After a detour with Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem, the two continue to flee and run head-on into Gonzo and Camilla the Chicken.
A used car dealership, a dead end, and a dead car later, they meet Miss Piggy at a beauty contest who falls head over heels for her sweet, sweet Kermie. When their vehicle breaks down again, they are saved by Dr. Teeth, who knew where they were because he read the film script. Dr. Teeth informs them that Doc has hired a frog killer and they must flee, but Kermit decides to face the baddie once and for all in a ghost town showdown. What's this? Bunsen and Beaker's grow pills grew animals to the size of a skyscraper and scared the bad guys away? Hooray! The Muppets make it to Hollywood where they're given the standard rich and famous contract and, after a catastrophic set debacle, realize that happiness isn't defined by success, but by the rainbow connection of lovers and dreamers and you.
Oh.
Ooh. So this movie's a fucking delight.
It's so much fun.
What an absolute sweet treat of a movie. So, okay, Rainbow Connection, obviously a bop, a standard even. I love that song. I think it's great. Out of context of this movie, it's great. In context, it's heartbreaking and sweet and like beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm just like joyous of him just like, yeah, this is just my life. And, you know, I'm looking for something and, you know, someday I might find that thing. And I think it's going to be great when it happens. But I'm also okay with this, and things are just good. And I think that there's beauty in the organic aspect of like letting that happen. Like, I want to meet people like me, and I think I will someday. That's great. I love that. And you're like, also, Rainbow Connection is gay. It's like being a closeted gay kid in like a small town and being like, someday I'm gonna find it. I'll find my people. I am obsessed. Well, that leads me into my first little tidbit, and it's probably reading into it because to me, Rainbow Connection, like there is that level of like queerness in it, of like longing for that community, longing to be like known or be seen by your peers. But the fact that Dom DeLuise is the talent scout who like rose into the scene and his life was actively like riddled with like, oh, we think he's gay. If you're like, no, he's not gay, he has a wife and kids. But there is like a low-key rumor, and like in Hollywood at the time too, like kind of an open secret, like, no, he's very gay. Like he's a gay man. And his best friend, Burt Reynolds. So there is sort of a quiet little situation possibly that like they were kind of in love for a time, possibly. I don't know. Either way, I love it. Dom DeLuise, also canonically hot. Also Burt Reynolds, canonically hot. Anyways, that's my lead into the Muppets movie. I love it.
Just
How
very
are we feeling?
gay. Very gay.
Yeah. Well, just that opening
like it
where he's
starts
like,
off and there's like the rainbow, and I was like,
yeah,
fucking gay. I'm so here.
And he's also talking about fucking Wizard of Oz. He's talking about Judy Garland. Like, why are there so many songs about rainbows? Like the most iconic rainbow song, right? Like other queer icon stuff. And I'm like, oh yes. Like, yeah. I mean, obviously it's complete, not even subtext, but you know, you can dream about it. Maybe it is. Who even knows?
Yeah. I took like some notes for each movie. Like one of the things I love about the Muppets, and it's something you can totally tell, like when the first movie, even in this first like original movie, is that like you have this like beautiful opener, and like it's amazing, and the camera's tracking it, and then immediately we're like off to tomfoolery. Like some random dude rows in, and it's instantly. Like it makes no sense. What, this dude is in a swamp in the middle of nowhere? It's like, I have a talent scale. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
But who cares? It's the Muppets.
It's perfect.
And that's like what they do so good. They just swap between the like heartfelt moments and then like crazy shit like the entire time.
Because it really is sort of comedic slapstick most of the time, just in terms of the way they deliver jokes. So that very much is like, ennui. And then he's like, hey, Hollywood's looking for a frog just like you. Oh, I'm good. You should really reconsider that. Bye. I'm like,
I have to catch a plane. Wait, with that tongue? No way. And I was like, oh my God.
Right? Oh my God. Well, I need to, like, a line that Fozzie says, his first line in the movie is so iconic when they're doing, like, the movie inside a movie. And Fozzie's like, I hope I'm funny. And he says, if I'm not funny, I don't know how I can live with myself.
I know.
And I'm like,
you better get a new apartment. That was the line.
And then Bunsen's straight up like, yeah, you're probably going to have to move if you're not funny. People will find you. Like, you're going to have to leave.
I love
so funny
how self-aware this is too, and whenever they write themselves into a hole or whatever, it like feels like, oh well, there's absolutely no way this can turn around, or like, you know, you as the audience are supposed to feel that, then it's like, oh well, I read the script, let's check the script, let's see what happens. And it's just so cute and so silly. And one of my other favorite parts was Stephen Martin, as his mother calls him.
Stephen Martin, not us.
Steve Martin, like just his whole part. Like I have a thing with Steve Martin because I had to watch him forever and ever and ever when I was working at the Opera House at Disney. But in this, he's just so funny. Oh, I can serve you now. I'm allowed to bring this to you. Okay,
I may
cool.
leave.
Cool. Yeah. Oh, I may. Thank you. And just like, ugh.
Yeah, the cameos were perfect. It's one of those movies that really did feel just so like earnest and silly, because that trope of like, also like you were saying, the breaking of the fourth wall, like, oh, let's just read the script, and then like, oh, now we know where to go because we read the script, like that being so inside. More often than not, especially with like newer material, I get kind of bored of that because it does feel a little too like Oh, okay. Like we've seen it before, and then I think about it. I'm like, where have we seen it before? And I'm like, this is the text. This is the text that they pull from. This is the base, the foundation, the fundamentals, if you will, of something like that.
I've been watching a lot of Community and lately, and I'm like, I can see the like all the like ties to like because Community is like late 2000s, 2010s, but you can see like this is like 79, all those years earlier, like the sort of like self-referential humor and like.
Oh yeah. I don't know Dan Harmon's history with the Muppets, but I'm sure it was hugely influential on like.
Oh yeah, there's a puppet episode. I'm pretty sure too.
There is of Community, which is canonically very bad. It's not a good episode of television. It's not. Oh yeah, but yes, 100%. There was a Community episode of puppets.
Yeah, and it's what I like about this too is even though. And I think this also holds up for the next one, too, right? When it is self-referential and self-aware, and it is kind of this, like, zany, the plot moves forward this way. It doesn't feel like, because it's, like, really well written in the way that it is and the way that it's presented. And I think also it helps that we're dealing with puppets. It doesn't feel out of place. It doesn't feel weird or forced. It feels really organic. Because it's also within the movie, like, it, like, carries these gags throughout the film, too, right? So there's, like, the Lost, have you tried Hare Krishna? Like, oh, okay. And so, like, at first you're like, oh, okay, whatever. And then just as the movie goes, so it, like, also builds up its own comedic content, which it, like, references, which is very, very fun, I think.
I feel like adding to that kind of organic thing, like, I feel like I noticed a lot of points, well, I don't know, like, for sure the context under which a lot of this was, like, filmed or written, but like there definitely was like some improv going on.
Oh, I'm sure, like, right?
Spot lines, like just like little moments, even in like the puppeteering that I noticed, it like made me really laugh. There was one part where Fozzie and Kermit are watching the TV jingle, like the original Frog TV jingle, and they're watching, and Fozzie's like kind of like behind Kermit, and Fozzie's like patting Kermit's back to the music, and I thought that was so fucking funny. And like, what else?
That song is really funny.
Oh, yeah.
Patriotism swells in the heart of the American bear. Like, maybe that wasn't improv, but so fucking funny.
Fozzie is so good. Like, because even when he's doing his, like, set, there's, like, the joke, like, somebody was so fat, and, like, how fat was he? It's, like, so fat that everyone liked him, and there was nothing wrong about him at all. But, like, gotta go. Just, like, actually, yeah, okay, great. Fozzie is an absolute icon, and it does, there does seem to be some really solid, I mean, on top of just knowing that, like, these puppeteers and, like, Jim Henson, like, this is very much like a family, like, these actors, these creators, like, they are so tight-knit, and you see that in the characters so clearly, like, there is a connectedness and, like a softness about like the way that they exist together, an effortlessness of all of these characters existing and being, and it's like so nice. Also, Kermit on a bike was so fucking funny. Kermit just riding a bicycle was the fun. I've seen that as like a gift, just like him like boop, 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 and it is hilarious for some reason to me.
I read something where they like had some sort of like clear string thing tied. There's a huge crane above.
Incredible.
I was the Wikipedia last night, and they like
for the bike.
Is that how they did it
for the movie? Yeah, I think they had like a crane with some like strings attached, and then they attached his feet to the pedals, so when the bike moved, it would go like that. And then the only thing I don't know is like how they got his head to turn, because when he was biking, he was like looking.
Well, there's a couple moments too when what's his name, Mel Brooks, like picks him up to put him in like the brain suck machine. His head is all like looking around like oh no, but you see both of Mel Brooks's hands, and part of me wonders if it was like some like low level animatronic that they had for that Kermit puppet just for that scene.
Yeah.
Just to like assuage the audience a little bit and like, oh yeah, like see, there's no hands. Ooh, yeah. He's still moving, you know. Also, when I was watching it too, there were a couple scenes where I was like, I bet that's in my hometown, because it just looked really familiar, and I looked it up. A big chunk of this movie of them driving to California is just shot in Monterey County in like Salinas.
Really?
Yeah, and like it's like some of the hills were, and then it was like when they meet Big Bird. That's River Road. That's River Road on the outskirts near Spreckles. Like, I've driven that road so many times. Like, I know exactly where that is.
Yeah.
And it's so cute because I was like, oh, that's like literally where I grew up. I know exactly what this looks like. But that was one of the locations I thought that was really fun. I was like, aw, yay.
Fun.
God, what a good movie. I want to talk about Miss Piggy a little bit and her as just an icon and a star. First and foremost, she gets a commercial in the middle of the film and decides to leave the film. Which is the funniest thing in the world. Like, she just gets saved. Like, they were about to die and she's like, oh my God, Kermie, I love you. Like, let's be together forever. And then she gets a phone call and it's like, a commercial?
Goodbye.
Okay. Bye. Actually, see ya. Miss Piggy is she's just so funny, and like her character as an idea, because she is so of the moment in any regard. It is literally like when she sees Kermit and she's feeling super infatuated with him, it's, I love you, I'm in love with you, I'll love you forever. And then as soon as she gets even a little bored, she's like, oh, I'm done. But literally there is no future or past with Miss Piggy. There is only present, and she only exists for the current second of time. And it's one of the funniest trope, or like one of the funniest character traits of any character, I think. It's just so nothing else matters, just me in this exact second. And if I
loved how like she just expects like no one to like remember anything that she did or the way she treated people. She just like, after the whole thing with the commercial, she's like, goodbye, Kermit. Like, it's not sad at all. She pulls up on the side of the road, hands up, hitchhiker, just like expecting everyone to be like, okay, get in the car. And then she's like, Kermit, can I have a kissy, please? And he's like, fucking no.
Yeah.
I want to kiss you right now.
I do want to put some of that in context, though, because, like, yes, and to everything that both of you are saying, because I love Miss Piggy as a character and just her self-absorbedness. Like, she's always just so great and so funny. And so, I don't know if you watched Muppets Now, but her segment on there is also just very cute and very
Is that the
funny.
new? That's the new show.
That's the new one.
It's really good.
It's so cute.
Yes.
But like, so Kermit this whole time, like, he, I guess we'll dive into him a little bit. He wasn't interested in stardom until he heard he could make millions of people happy, right? And we see him kind of collecting these characters on his way to Hollywood. He's like, hey, you could do it too. Hey, you know, we could all be there. And he willingly offers his help to, you know, to Fozzie and to all of these people. But when it comes to Piggy, he sees her and he's like, oh, cool, we can hang out. But then when he asks her to come, like, you know, to come hang out, she's like, oh, to come with you, right? Because that's also kind of what we expect as the audience. Like, the precedent that has been set is when he says, hey, let's hang out, it's like, hey, let's go on this journey together. And everybody up until this point has been male. And then her being the woman is like, no. I wasn't trying to, you weren't going to come, and this isn't happening, right? And she doesn't leave for the commercial until after the whole kidnapped thing, right? Like, so
it's like right after they get saved.
It's right after. But like, she gets kidnapped, right? And then he goes to save her, and then it ends up, which I love, that she ended up having to save him.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
She's like, what the fuck ever? Oh, okay, fine. And so she like saves herself, and that's the point where she's like, okay, bye. Yeah. And she goes and does her own thing. And then when she comes back, she's like, hey, what, you know, hey, how's it going? You know, but like, initially she was not invited. She just kind of had to invite herself. And because of happenstance and because of circumstance, she got to go along with the group, and we didn't have to like actually resolve that. So then later on, when she leaves, and she leaves of her own volition, because again, Kermit didn't want her there to begin with, supposedly, but then it's like, oh, well, you left. You know, like, I can't talk to you. So it's kind of setting up like a weird double standard for her.
Oh, for sure. I mean, with her specifically too being sort of the romantic interest of Kermit, there is this sort of like, we can't take you seriously perspective that we're expected as the audience to have with her. But that's also sort of encapsulated within the idea that she's at her worst when she's with the Muppets. Like, literally always at her worst. Like, whenever she's without them, it's because she's the chief editor of Vogue, or she's shooting a commercial, or she's running a business, or she's literally achieving these monumental goals because it's an opportunity. She's like, yeah, of course I'm saying yes. I'm going. Like,
well,
why would I stop
what she
you?
wants, and she goes for it, right?
And
so she wants Kermit, and she's like, cool, I'm here. And I think that, and we'll get into it in the next movie for sure, but a lot of these ideas that were presented here, like Kermit having commitment issues, like Piggy like being ambitious and being able to do anything that she wants to do, like all of these things are set up in this movie, and I love how they're treated in the next one. You know, even with all of the canon in between them and everything, just these things are fundamental to these people's, or to the Muppets and to their core of who they are. So yeah, Piggy is her worst when she is with the Muppets, right? She is so fucking successful outside of it. Kermit didn't want to get married, and we'll get into all of that, but like, that is still like, Kermit's a great friend, but he's an awful boyfriend / partner / lover, right?
He's a great person. Like, Kermit is big sweetie, wants the best for everybody, but there is a level of like uneasiness and uncertainty that he carries when he's with Miss Piggy that she's like, I literally don't have time for you not to know. Like, I know exactly what's happening, and if you don't, that's okay. But I'm going to scoot. Like, I don't have time for you to figure it out. I know what's going on. I know what I bring to the table. If you don't, that's fine. We're on different paths. See ya. Like,
and Kermit's like a person that really needs everything to go correct, like go the way that he has it planned, right? So when the mind control thing happens, Piggy has to save him, cool. And then in the next movie, like, Piggy has to be the one to like step up and to be like, okay, he's having a meltdown. This is him. So we're going to do things my way now, and we're going to get things done.
Jack Black.
Oh my God.
Which is just, we'll get into that one, but that's oh my God.
But time and time again, right? Like, and even in this one, like, the car breaks down, everything is going shitty, and Kermit is like, feels sad and threatened. And that's when, you know, before he was like, hey guys, we can do something. Let's try it. And then he like has this whole thing where he's like, well, I never promised anybody anything. I didn't even want to leave the swamp in the first place, you know? And then he has this thing where he talks to himself and he's like, oh, but I promised me. But he never really acknowledges his part in Piggy or in his friends and in all of this. He's still just kind of like, he doesn't know himself, so he can't truly be there for anybody else.
Yeah. And that's, I think, something about the general, like, male hero that we see so often is, like, I'm going to do it and I need all of your help. But when I fail, it's like, woe is me and I'm the center of this. It's like, do you not realize how you affect other people's? Like, sure, yes, people are willing to help you, but, like, when you fail, it's just you, it's not them. Like, other people do exist around you. You know what I mean? And I think it all stems from this level of, like, a place of insecurity. Like an uneasy and insecure, you know, right?
Yeah, I like kind of how there are like these kind of like archetypes. Like it's interesting to like watch this one again with the context of like every other Muppet movie, because it's almost like all these characters have like these archetypes or like the way that they are, and in each movie it kind of like resets and like you just get to see like almost a slightly different version of that played out, and it would almost like seem maybe that it would get boring, but it never really does to me. It's really interesting to see kind of how they tackle these same characters with these same issues in a new setting with different contexts and stuff like that.
They're very much like their own Jungian archetypes, right? Like there's the fool and the hero and all of that. And even though, like, you know, like we're talking about right now with Kermit, like, you know, he's obviously the hero and he's this person. But one of the things I like about him is that he is so flawed, right? And he is supposed to be our main character, our main hero, right? But every time it always comes back down to the people around you are what are going to be there when you don't know what's happening and when you can't function, right? And so it's the other Muppets, it's his family that like really save him in these moments, you know? And he is also somebody that doesn't like conflict, right? Like, so Miss Piggy has no fucking problem taking so much ass, right?
is
No
so
problem.
good.
So good.
She literally has. He is so conflict averse, and she is conflict positive. Like she will. She
good.
wants to. She's like, oh, is there an
Give
issue?
me an excuse.
Yeah. Let's
Give
talk
me
to
an
them.
excuse.
I would love to talk to them right now. Let's go talk to them. And you're like, Miss Piggy, stop.
And he even when he finally confronts Doc at the end, Doc
Yeah.
Hopper, he's like, "You're not a bad man. Look in your heart, and I know that you want to let us go," which doesn't happen, right? But he is somebody that really has to believe in the goodness of people and of humanity and the world, right? So he's really fragile in that way, and just him being paired with Piggy, who is completely the opposite. That's why Piggy and Kermit are so iconic as a couple, or just as two people that exist and are attracted to each other, because for a lot of Muppets, or at least current Muppet stuff, they're not necessarily together, is because they're just such opposites. And the conflict that ensues from that is just so tasty.
I mean, yeah, it's great fodder for anything, for media. To see these two complete opposite folks constantly in these zany scenarios with each other. It's oh yeah, well, this is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Kermit is kind of relatable. Sometimes life is just hard, and I feel kind of that aspect of him where he just does not like conflict, just wants everyone to get along and wants to be in control of everything. That's freaking relatable.
I absolutely
truly.
identify with Kermit as somebody that has anxiety and OCD. Absolutely, 100%.
And there is also a level that I identify with in that way where he doesn't know how to really react to somebody like Miss Piggy. Obviously he's you seem cool and I like you, but you're her confidence, the level that it's at is so intimidating to him that he's kind of yeah, I don't know. And she's well, I do, so let's go. And you're that conflict is it's so real and so nice. It's fun to watch. He's really timid to be the leader. It seems and I guess that's an important,
which is
just
also
contextual
so great.
character thing. It's great for conflict because he's constantly at odds. Yes, I'm the leader. Yes, I want this to go. Yes, I want people to listen to me and trust me. But at the same time, do I trust me? This is going terribly. Am I a bad person? Should people like me? I don't care about people. And you're whoa, this is a lot.
And still
for
so
this
relatable,
one.
right?
Still so
that's
relatable,
what makes it so relatable, because look, do we want to take over the world? Yes. Do we want the standard rich and famous contract? Absolutely. But it's hard.
Yeah. Oh,
it's
yeah.
hard.
I don't know. I don't really I truly don't think I have a lot. There was a joke that I was thought was whatever. You think this crowd is ugly? You should see the dancing girls. I was oh.
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, arguably the only other woman that we really see, so we see Camilla, who's literally attached to Gonzo, and we can't even understand what she's saying, right? Yeah. And then the other woman that we see is in the bar when Kermit walks in, and she's you want to buy me a drink? And he's what? And she's he touched me, and and I'm oh, cool, that's cool. And there was another moment too where did you guys see the Confederate flag in that fair scene?
I did. I was actually going to bring that up later. I was
no.
Yeah.
But then I was it's 1979. I feel that. Yeah,
that's why. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe
I feel somebody maybe snuck that in there because it's just for a split second that we see it. It wasn't plastered anywhere else, but some extra.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was oh.
It could be set dressing to designate that it's the South and pretty dangerous to some degree, kind of fish out of water, oh, we're so far from home.
But nothing else about that is dangerous, though. Yeah, and there's a better way that I feel if it was intentional, Jim Henson would have. I mean, look at what he did with the bar, right? Yeah. So I feel if it was intentional, it would have been a little bit.
They would have addressed
more
it
on the
more.
Nose. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
There was also the moment. So Mel Brooks's character, right? The German Jewish person that only feels good when he inflicts pain. Did anybody else feel a little bit weird about that?
So I felt weird only I mean, a little bit, but like just knowing Mel Brooks's history and the way that he talks about
true.
World War II and the way that he like his whole thing, like his entire career is comedy that subverts the Holocaust. Like that's his whole thing. So to me, I was like, yeah, some of these jokes are like not really working, and like the death yarmulke, I'm like, okay, sure, like whatever. But to me, I'm like, oh, that's like Mel Brooks's therapy. Like as a Jewish person, that's what he's doing to like kind of it's I mean it's like all the stuff we talked about with the producers. Just in terms of like how he sees it. So on the surface, 100%. When I was watching it, I was like, nah. But then I remember, like, you know what? Well, that's like this is just Mel Brooks's thing. And, like, it's him kind of reclaiming that horror by, like, doing the shitty German accent and, like trying to belittle Nazis in this way. And I'm like, okay, all right. Like, and especially for, like, the 70s, this Jewish person doing that way closer to World War II than we currently are, being like, yeah, this kind of just happened, like, a couple decades ago. Hey, what's up? You know what I mean? But it was a little meh. There was also when Kermit is going into the restaurant, the line, "Oh, foreign food, doesn't smell promising, but a frog's got to eat." I wasn't sure if that was like a foreign as like distasteful, like, oh, it's foreign, I don't think I like it, sort of a thing. But then in the context of they're eating frog legs, oh, he's the outsider, he's a foreigner. That's why it doesn't really smell promising, is because it's frog legs. Like initially, I was like, oh, is this like kind of gross? But then I was like, no, it's like it's painting the picture that like he's an outsider, he is the foreign one, and this is foreign food, frog legs.
I was gonna say I liked that one. In that one scene, one of the funniest moments in the movie I thought was when the like bad guy is like looking at Kermit's legs through the spyglass. You just see, like,
so
Kermit's legs, like,
fucking
dancing.
funny. Yes, incredible. Like those visual gags are just so silly, like so funny. Like it's the same thing like him riding a bike. Why is that so funny? Like it's so like I love
that.
Just the whole like bad guy premise is so fun and silly. Like like it's so it's funny because it's like anti-capitalist kind of, even though like Kermit wants to make $1 million and make people happy, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, just the commentary on this restaurant owner who does not even have one restaurant yet is going to open 500 all at one time. Yeah. And it's going to be frog legs, not knowing if people like them or not. And he wants his spokesperson to be a frog. So he wants like, and also love that they made him look like a plantation slave owner, right? So literally he's trying to get Kermit to like get people to eat frog legs, eat his brethren, and he's like, no, I'm not gonna do that, I can't do this.
He's also on the surface, not only is he bad in all aspects of the word, but he's bad at business. He's not smart. Like these are not good decisions, and the fact that he's exhausting literally all of his efforts and his money just to get this bad decision spokesperson, like, hey, that's not a good idea, and you're obsessed with this. So like it's very silly.
I love like kind of the inclusion of that like weird supposedly chain restaurant that has like a theme. Like, I feel like that is like one of the most American things ever. That like concept and that idea appeared in this movie because like living in California, especially like just like the random fucking places like Harris Ranch, the pea soup place.
Oh yeah.
Like I feel like that is so American. A place entirely dedicated to French fried frog legs. Like, of course.
Oh yeah. Well, that's also,
of course.
Frog legs used to be what would be considered in early American history as like an American food. Like when we think about like American foods, it was like turtle soup and frog legs were the two dishes that a lot of people who weren't from America saw as like, oh, that is American cuisine, is turtle soup and frog legs. Wow. Isn't that wild?
That's so fucking strange. I've never heard that.
Both of those do not sound appealing at all.
Yeah,
not at all. Which is wild. Like in that way, it wasn't like fast food always. It was like, oh, what is the cuisine? Turtle soup and frog legs. What?
I also love that like there was like a hint of the frog leg chain being McDonald's. Did you guys get that?
Oh yeah,
vibe
the golden
too?
arches with the
love.
It was great.
Also, I love where they went to pick up all of the different Muppets too. Like, it made so much sense. Like, Electric Mayhem, perfect, excellent. And their response to like Kermit wanting him to join was like, no. When you're famous, we'll come exploit your wealth.
Oh, amazing. Such a good line. Like, oh, don't worry about it. Like, you go get famous, we'll come. We're friends, remember? Like, ooh. Some of these lines are just real good. The Electric Mayhem were great.
They were so good. And Sweetums, oh my gosh. Poor Sweetums, like being like just treated like garbage, like not even called his name. And then they like help him, like he helps them like get the car for cheaper, which was so cute, so cute. And then he's left behind and chasing after the car. And that's a gag that they repeat in the next movie too.
Yeah, which it's like the same place too, which is so funny.
It's so fun.
This movie ends on like a really beautiful note too, just with the reprise of the Rainbow Connection, and then on top of like I love that they get everything they ever wanted. They get the big important contract, they get the studio, they get all these props, and then they're doing the big number to like perform for us now as these like famous people, and it all just falls apart. It just it's destroyed, and they're just like, oh, and then it's like, well, no, that doesn't matter. None of this matters. What matters is that we're here together and we did it together. That's the point. Like,
they've literally found the end of the rainbow. They've found the rainbow connection,
and then the rainbow
they are
comes
there
in
together.
Ugh, obsessed. I know it's like a little cheesy, but the level of like joy. That's Muppets. Yeah. It was
I cry
the
every time
ending.
I hear that song. Every time.
Oh, it's amazing.
Speaking of our producers episode, Jay Levy, his song that they walked down the aisle to was the Rainbow Connection.
Aww.
And the next one, big opening number, I've Got Everything I Need, that's what I walked down the aisle to. Because I think that is just such a beautiful song. It's so sweet and sincere, and talking about like, it's kind of like furthering that Rainbow Connection vibe where it's like, you need other people, and like so sweet, so lovely.
Well, speaking of that, do you guys want to dip into the next one?
Yes, I have many thoughts.
Walter the Muppet and older brother Gary, not a Muppet, grew up in small town, idolizing and loving the Muppets. After planning a trip for his girlfriend Mary, Gary decides to invite his younger brother to their Los Angeles anniversary vacation so they can finally tour the Muppets television studio. Oh no, the studio is super run down because nobody likes the Muppets anymore. Talk about a ruined vacation. Double oh no, Walter sneaks into Kermit's old office and overhears Tex Richmond expressing his plans to tear down the old studio once the original standard Rich and Famous contract ends, which is like very soon. Through some serious nostalgic persuasion, the gang convinces Kermit to try and raise $10 million to save the show in the studio. He's in. Cue rounding up the gang montage a la the original movie.
Where's Miss Piggy? We find out that she and Kermit broke up, and that Piggy is now chief editor of Vogue Paris, a la Devil Wears Prada. They drive to France to convince Miss Piggy to come back and help with the show, and initially she says no. But after seeing her replacement, she enthusiastically changes her mind. They get the time slot, they get the venue, and they get the show together. Oh no! Gary forgets it's his anniversary dinner with Mary, and the whole reason they planned this trip, and now Kermit is throwing in the towel. It takes kidnapping Jack Black, a marvelous whistle-tone opera, and a Rainbow Connection to raise the money, and a successful telethon. Walter becomes an official Muppet, and everyone is happy. Hooray!
Hooray! I realized as I was writing that, I was like kind of running out of stuff because like a lot of stuff happens later with like text and stuff, but you know,
he's so inconsequential.
He really
like,
is.
He's just there so there's a movie. He's there so the movie can happen.
Yeah, and he's also a bad baddie. Oh, he's got a good laugh for sure.
Okay, having his like singing and dancing ladies like in their break room just ready at any time to like, oh yeah, here, come out, like, you know, oh, break time's over, and then like, here's Tex Richmond, he's so great, and then they just go in and they're like checking their phone and everything when they're back in the break room. I thought that was so funny.
I loved it. So this one I really enjoyed too. I felt like it was like a great way. Talk about something that is like literally just, it's like its thesis statement is for nostalgia. Like the whole base of the plot is like, we loved this growing up. This is literally our childhoods. Like, let's go and see this thing because we have this like nostalgic connection to it as like a family, and that's the crux of how the adventure starts, right? I think that's so gorgeous.
Yeah, and I think that within that too, like within even that, just that like first like montage that we get, right? We're talking about like, this is nostalgia and we're here for this and we love this. Also, representation matters, and talking about overarchingly through Gary and through Kermit, this whole movie is talking about men coming to terms with who they are and where they belong. So I feel like it's, yes, nostalgia, high level, like, and everything about it. But within that, it's just those narratives are weaved in just in a very kind and thoughtful way, I thought.
Yeah, and what I was going to say was that I kind of like watching, I definitely kind of found like pretty huge queer subtext with Walter. Like I feel like a lot of my like whole coming out and like queer experience kind of matched Walter's journey through the movie, I would say. I don't know how much I want to say about it, but like I can kind of try to go quick, like some of the moments that I saw.
The floor is yours. You can literally take as much time as you want.
So like, one, he's like the only Muppet in his town.
Yeah.
That gave me very much like queer kid being the only queer person, which like I was for a huge portion of like my high school experience and all that. He can't ride the rides, which felt like to me very much like some of the exclusionary stuff you feel as a queer person when you're surrounded by a lot of like heterosexual like peers, especially like in high school age. And then he kind of has this like call to action with the Muppets. I feel like to me that kind of represented like the start of his like coming out and like queer journey.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I feel like kind of the fact that like, all these Muppets are now like downtrodden and old and like laid off, and kind of represented like, it may not be at all how you have it in your head in terms of like your coming out of your queer experience.
Oh yeah.
Like it may be kind of like hard to navigate and find your group and find your people, which is clear because he didn't just like pull up to Kermit's house and everyone was there and it continued. No, he had to like find Kermit and like convince him. And then later on, after he kind of started to surround himself by all these like queer people, i.e. the Muppets, Walter was like questioning his own queerness and was like, which is something that I kind of related to. It's like, now I'm here. Like, am I gay enough to be here?
Yeah.
Like, do I have the gay in me?
Yeah. Do I belong? Yeah.
But like, when you're not gay, quote unquote, for so much of your life prior, and then you suddenly are, you kind of have to like reconcile with like, how do I do it? Do I have it in me? But then kind of Kermit lets him know kind of towards the end that like, we all have it within us. And that was like one of my favorite parts of the movie too. And then, the man in the Muppet song is like pretty fucking gay. Like, am I gay or am I straight? Like, who am I? Who am I?
Yeah. And that the live action actor is an out gay actor.
Yeah.
What's it? Sheldon from, what is the actor's name?
I don't know. He's just Sheldon.
Yeah. I forget his name, but like for his like live action counterpart when he's looking in the mirror is like a famously gay actor is like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Like I felt like that whole thing was pretty on the nose to me.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely see that a lot too, just in terms of like, specifically the way they set up the expectation for Community for him. Like this idea of like, I've wanted this my whole life. I know I belong here. I know that this is who I am. And I know that it's like, because of who I am, there's a level of like, I haven't been included and I have been sort of the outsider in this small town. So let's get there. And I want to see it. It's going to be so romantic. And like, you romanticize this fantasy of like what you want this sort of like queer community to be when you get there. Yeah. And then suddenly it's like, they go to Reno to find Fozzie, and this beautiful song that represents so much has now been like destroyed for the sake of capitalism. So he's seeing Fozzie singing this shitty version of Rainbow Connection about selling shit at a casino.
This like rainbow washing of a song about
literally, and like as a young person, I'm sure Walter imagining, like, can you imagine hearing them sing that song or hearing Kermit sing that song, like what it means to me, what it's meant to me, and then going and being like, hey, I have to pay my bills and it sucks. Yep. Like, also I'm struggling. Like, yeah, sure, I'm a Muppet, but like, I have to eat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or like even like that to me reads as very like, oh, I'm gay. Let's go on Grindr, and then you have like a terrible, awful time.
It is the conflating and romanticizing a queer experience versus the lived experience, and that being way more. Because for some people it's a great experience, but oftentimes it is riddled with a lot of shit you don't expect. It's like it is a weird, both positive and severely negative experience for a lot of people in a lot of ways. And it is because there is the fantasy of that, like the expectation versus the reality. Yeah, you have to like kind of wade through the bullshit to like kind of ultimately arrive at like Walter's idea of like he's a part of the Muppets. The Muppets, the lore, the legends, But then the ownership too, the way that the movie sort of constructs itself around that idea, the moment of realization that like, oh yeah, we all have this within us. I am a Muppet, I am this, but I'm my own version of that thing. Like, yes, I'm this, but I'm also a lot of these other things. When he does the performance, like the whistle tone thing, where it's like this kind of odd performance, but like he's really good at this kind of weird thing, and everyone's like, holy shit, yeah, that's you. Like, that's sick. And it's the embrace of that sort of thing that felt so bad and foreign and wrong for so long, and maybe he had done that at some point and was told like, hey, that's stupid and bad, like you're stupid and bad and you shouldn't do that ever again. The embrace of that as like a owning of one's power is so like joyous. I love the way they did that, for sure.
Yeah, and like the whole reason that he, gets stage fright and everything is because he doesn't want to be laughed at, because this is essentially the first time he's going to be presenting himself as himself, literally to everybody, to the entire world that's watching, right? Yeah. So like, yeah, I love that. I love that read so much. Oh my gosh. You could write a whole thesis on this. This is incredible.
Because I think you really could, because there is also that level too of like an older brother or like a sibling who's like, I know that I need to kind of like be there for you even if you don't necessarily know. And it's like, obviously I don't want to like, nobody's outing anybody and I don't want to like do that, but it's like, hey, there's a really good opportunity for this person, like my loved one, my brother, to like have a good positive experience for themselves. Like, I want to help in any way that I can, just by being like, come with us. Like, maybe you'll have a great time and be around people like you, like, like with not so many words, but there's a level of like inclusion, hoping to help like sort of sow those seeds of power, of ownership. Well, and something else I kind of noticed with Jason Segel, who I love, I think he absolutely fucking killed this role. He did great. Like, I felt like he took the role and treated it like genuine, and like he wasn't above it at all. Like, I felt that he was grounded with all the other Muppets as he was playing it. Like, he was having fun. But what I was going to say, kind of adding to that whole queer thesis thing, is like Jason Segel is definitely like the straight friend to me. Like, he exists as like that person to Walter a little bit, as well as just being like a man, not a Muppet. And I feel like that's something that I experienced, where like, you can have your straight friends, you can have that, you can have your parents who are straight, your mom and your dad. But like, ultimately, for people to like truly understand you, you need that queer experience and that queer relationship in your life. Whether it's platonic or romantic or whatever. And I feel like there was that moment in the film too, where Jason Segel like looked at Walter and kind of like almost understood that. He was like, we have to kind of like break apart for this. Yeah. And it might be hard, but like, it's clear that you need to do this for your like growth as a Muppet and as a person and stuff like that. This is the part of your life where I'm not around. Like, obviously I'm going to be here, but like, I can't be with you and I shouldn't be with you for that. Like, that's your stuff. That's your life. That's your trajectory. That's your process. That like, if you need to talk about it, sure. But I can't offer that sense of community that you're looking for. Yeah, I related to that a lot. Oh, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That whole speech that he gave him was really good, talking about how like it's believing in others is easy, but like believing in yourself is hard, and that's part of growing up, is being who you are. And then when he tells Walter, and he like starts crying because he's so happy for him and stuff, he says like, you're my hero. And like, because he's he's always been so attached to him because he believes in Walter and he loves him, you know?
Yeah.
And then like just in that moment, he's just like, I fully see you and go be yourself. Go do this. You know, I'm not holding you back. And, you know, clearly like we see that they're, while they're very close, like they're both holding each other back in so many different regards, right? We see very clearly how Gary and Mary are affected by this, Mary especially, right? And just in order to progress, in order to like be happy at all, like they have to go on their own separate journeys.
Yeah. It's also it's one thing about like storytelling and just existential shit in general, the idea of existing. It's one of the saddest parts of like acknowledging certain things that like for me, one of the saddest realizations of just like getting older and moving on is the idea of like right now will never happen again. So for like relationships and friendships, like they're all finite to some degree, like whether it's death or whether it just like peters out, whatever it is, they will all end at some point. And even this version of that will never be the same as it is going to be or ever was. Like that notion and knowing so clearly, because sometimes like you don't really recognize it, time just passes, but there are times where like you can recognize it in the moment, like, oh, like this is the last time it's going to be like this, and I know that, like I'm recognizing it, I'm internalizing it, and I'm acknowledging like this is it, it's not going to be the same after this. And it's crazy. It's just like just one of those like life things that makes me the saddest, but also it's like it's sad, but it's also like really kind of beautiful and just like gorgeous, because it really is like, oh, this moment will never happen again, and how lovely it is that we had it. Like, isn't that such a gift? Like, what a treat. And like, how many more of those are we going to have, or that individually we are going to have separately, that are going to be just as meaningful, but in their own way. Like, just it's both incredibly sad, but also like super, super joyous. It's a lot. It's very complex for me, that idea. And it's good. Like, just that impasse of like, yeah, this is kind of where it ends. And you're like, damn.
Just thinking about that feeling, one makes me think of the Rebecca Sugar song that she wrote for the end of Adventure Time.
It's literally that. It's
and
literally
two,
that.
just makes me, I'm like over here, like very teary eyed, just like, don't look at me right now.
So that level of emotional sort of palpability, like just how real it is and what a human thing that is so prevalent in this movie too. Like, just with their relationship specifically, like seeing them acknowledge that in one another, like he's getting married, like he's moving on, like it's happening for him too, for Gary. Gary's getting married, like he's moving on with his life. Walter's finally finding himself, and he's like, oh, I am that thing that I loved. Like, I can love myself in this way. And knowing that like we've both gotten here, it's time to like always that threshold is so like it's great. I love it. Oh, I love it. It's so heartwarming and also heartbreaking, both.
Yeah.
Ooh. So there, I do have a few like things about it. I really disliked that the bad guy, his song was a rap song on top of his like band of baddies were like a tank top, chain, and a beanie, and like kind of POC coded in this way where like, oh no, the bad people are people of color. And I was like, what? And it's obviously like,
and
he's like this bad white guy.
Right?
And a whitewashing of it. Yeah. He's like this bad guy, obvious like greedy capitalist baddie, but we're also supposed to like dislike these coded characters who he's paying. I just like, I felt like it was just sloppy.
Yeah.
Like, because it was so overt in the way that they presented it that I was like, it's not just like, oh, obviously like bad people are just bad people. It was so just like outfitted to be this sort of stereotypical look of like these people, and I was just like, that's inconsiderate and bad. Like, it just seemed like completely like, oh, of course they would be this way. No, that's because of your white supremacist bias. Like, consider that before like writing these characters as that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It felt to me like he was just very him as the bad guy was just there as a plot device, and not a lot went into it. So they're like, you know, and the Muppets does this a lot where like there's a stereotype or an overgeneralization that they'll use, and you know, a lot of the time they'll figure out how to subvert that, or they'll lean into that in these ways. But to make the choices that they made for Tex Richmond in the way that they did that.
Yeah.
And then because like also like you were just talking about how like, you know, realize that you're the one that like made this person this way. The whole reason he is like the way he is because the Muppets laughed at him and made fun of him. You know, and so that's why he's trying to tear them down and all of that. So to have that be the crux of this, and then to like have him coded as like a white person, like co-opting.
It's like co-opting Black culture and then using blackness as an evil is what it felt like. And I was like, I know that that's like the intention, but it's also like you have to recognize that like in this context, how you're doing this is it's like messy as fuck. Like what? Especially for a movie that is in this way, sort of like touting the idea of progressiveness, of like new ideas and like feminism and like all of the like we're doing it, we're good. Muppets are good. We move with it, like look at us. But then for it to be like such a boring version, like not to say that like there's not boring versions of racism, but like truly like the most like the most textbook boring white version person of like I'm afraid of Black people. I was like, oh, what? Yeah. That it seemed so, and the key word is it seemed so unthoughtful. Like you really didn't consider this idea at all. Like this was so throwaway. Like what? That is such a bad. Like I can't get over it. It's too much. Wait, Cole, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, like I feel like a Muppets rap, like when they first met the Muppets, would have been funny. Like I would have appreciated them to redirect their rap.
But even that, like when you look at, so like Piggy got pissed off because somebody replaced her, and the Muppet that replaced her is darker skinned, right?
Yeah,
and so like even the bad guys in that, and I didn't really notice that until this watch because you know I'm trying to watch it and like be hyper focused in on this stuff, and I was like, that doesn't look great. And there's a moment. Okay, so I felt like the line that she says to Piggy when she's like, "What are you doing here, sister?" And then like, and because like that character also has that like really gruff voice, right? Piggy looks at her and says, "Sister," and to me that made me feel like, okay, are you like, are we doing that with this?
Are you having a conversation about blackness now? Like,
about
is this
blackness?
What we're, is this what we're doing?
Or are we doing this about like? Because to me, I was like, are you trying to say that this character, that the Muppet version is trans? Are you like trying to like like, so it could be taken in either context, right? But either way, Piggy is, you know, she's pissed off because somebody replaced her, but like the way that small line was written to me felt really gross.
Oh, for sure. I didn't even notice that, but 100%, regardless of its intention, even if there's no sort of subtext to it, it seemed like, hey, let's include puppets with like a darker skin tone, and then they just like made them all bad, and you're like, oh.
But that's also like kind of the thing in, you know, like, so the bad guy wasn't really thought out. Same thing with like the Muppets. They were just like the Muppets, I think, were just supposed to be fun discount, you know, but again, like without realizing that you're darkening the skin and you're like, you know, like the way that they presented it, and they're like obviously poorer and things like that. So like that's something that, you know, maybe wasn't very as tasteful. But then also the women in the film too, like even Piggy, right? The women have to do so much in this movie because like Piggy has to come in and save the day. Mary is the one that like, again, like pulls everything together, where she's the one that finds Kermit's house. She's the one that drives everywhere. She's the one that is also a mouthpiece for the men when they don't know what to say, right? She's also incredibly capable because she's an electrical instructor, which is fucking cool.
She's also so considerate and caring.
She is, but she's not able to like talk about like how she feels because she's like also coded as like she's very passive, right? And like she starts to get passive aggressive too, right? And so there's the whole like, which I love the song, the Me Party song. It's so fun, right?
It's a great song.
But that song is Piggy and Mary, who are the only real two women in the whole cast, right? Other than Rashida Jones, who's like kind of there, but like. They're talking like they're like, oh well, like this is me, and it's like supposed to, like, to me it's seems like it's supposed to be like an empowering song, but when you look at the two of them, and especially like towards the end, like they're kind of like gaslighting themselves into like, oh no, see, I'm fucking fine by myself, I can do this, I'm here. Because you see that, like, you know, they start off, because like the song starts off, they're both kind of like angry and whatever, and then as they continue to tell themselves this lie, they like, you know, just kind of like they have to force that smile a little bit more, and they're not as into it, but this is what they have to tell themselves to keep themselves going. And even though, like, I know we touched on Piggy earlier when we were talking about how she's like, no, I'm good here in France, right? And that's what they're telling us at first, but then, like, you know, oh, she still has the picture of Kermit, right? And she's still willing to give him a chance, even though she told herself that she makes a point to tell herself that she's not going back to him. She promised herself that she's not going to go back to him. And then she breaks her promise to herself because suddenly Kermit finally knows how to say, like, hey, I need you, because he can't use the I word, right? And she's like, she has to tell him, I'm not here for you, I'm here for everybody else. But then when Kermit loses faith, she steps in and she has to clean everything up. And then, oh, okay, I need you. Okay, cool. Let's sing Rainbow Connection. Let's cry. Everybody cry together. Everybody in the whole wide world when you hear that song. And then now we're going to go have tadpoles. Like, there's no real, like, reckoning with, like, you know, with that hurt that has happened. And then Mary, too, like, she's just forgotten. And, like, Gary, he does this thing where he tells everybody, like, or he's like, oh, Mary and I are here. We're ready to help. We will do whatever we have to do. And she's like, what the fuck? This is our anniversary vacation. But she never speaks up. And she's just like, okay, you know, but like Gary always assumes that what he wants is what she wants. And sure, like part of his character, part of his journey in this is realizing that like that's not the case and that he has to listen to her. But she's dealt with this for 10 fucking years. Like,
I know,
she's been this third wheel, she's been this person, and I like, even though she's like, you know, it's great that she is so kind and caring and everything, we like women, we should not have to put up with that for 10 years. We should not have to wait 10 years and have this whole big giant epiphany and big music number in order to be seen and to be recognized and to have our wants and needs addressed. So I felt really bad. Like, and we see her trying to take ownership of her own life in certain moments where she's like passive aggressively reading the thesaurus. I'm going to do this solo. I'm going to go alone, you know, and she's like finding all of these things where she's trying to figure out, like trying to hurt Gary, but she's also trying to like use that as like armor. And instead of like it coming off as armor, especially with that, going back to that song, the Me Party song, it's just sad because she doesn't feel okay or safe or like she's ever heard like when she talks to him. So she just like gave up. And now she's like at the end of it. Took her 10 years to get here. You know what I mean?
She's like never felt supported. She has done so much for literally everybody else in her life. And she does like have that moment where she's like, yeah, he can come. Let's do this trip. But please remember, I want that dinner. I want a dinner with just us. That is the one thing I'm asking. This one thing. He's like, yes, 100%. I hear you. Let's do it. And so there is a level of like her kind of like seeing her roll with the punches a little bit, even though just like she shouldn't have to. She shouldn't even be in that position in the first place. But she is so just like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. Like, I'll do it by myself. And she's literally like so sad, but singing in this song, like, you know what? I'm by myself and it's great and everything's great, but she's like on the verge of tears. Like I'm having a me party. Like it's like reframing the narrative to be like, it's actually not that bad. It's like, no, it is really
just
bad.
Gaslighting yourself. It's gaslighting yourself. And a lot of time, like as women, that's what we do. Like, especially when we're in relationships where we don't necessarily have a voice. And again, like, you know, Gary makes the decisions for her. You know, even though we see she is smart, she is capable. In every instance, like the reason that the story is able to progress and that this show is able to happen is because 1, Rashida Jones takes a chance on the Muppets. 2, Piggy gets the celebrity host. And 3, Mary goes and fixes the electricity because she gives up her anniversary dinner to go and help the Muppets and Walter, right?
Because even at their dinner, they have the TV on.
Even at the dinner.
Even at the dinner, he's like, wait, no. And she's like, you really want to be there?
Like,
he's like, no, I'm fine.
It doesn't mean, like, it felt a little bit off.
And what is her reward for all of this? She gets to marry him.
Yes, but she doesn't even get
congrats,
to, like,
queen.
she doesn't get to like be herself, and like our entire perception of her too, like the only thing that she wants, like even from her first song, is like, I want to be married. That's it. Like, what the fuck else does she want? We don't know. Yeah. So that did bug me a little bit. But I do think that she played that character very well, because that fake smile is there the entire fucking time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts. One, Amy Adams is like my everything. I love her to death.
So good.
She is amazing. Like, everything she's in. Arrival, fantastic movie. Enchanted, like, top
2 coming out.
I'm so excited. But yeah, like, I love Amy Adams, and I know she like, obviously with the role that she had, I think she did amazing. I always felt like there was that kind of wall between her and Gary. Like, I could tell just like by her face and like her expression that she was just like, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that kind of brings itself to like one of my, I think the biggest issue that I have with the movie, not a ton, like I love this movie. I rewatching it, I was like, oh, this is great. I totally forgot how great this was. But I think it's that like maybe the plot is like a little split between the whole Gary and Mary thing and then also Walter's journey. And I feel like they did not have enough time in the entire movie for the Gary and Mary thing to like resolve. Like, I wanted her to be angry. She wasn't ever really angry.
Yeah.
She sent him that kind, very sweet, curly handwriting letter in, like, that one scene. She's like, I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
But if I was in her situation, I would have been fucking pissed.
Yeah.
And I wanted her to have that moment. But I don't think they were willing to kind of give her that, because she was kind of there almost to... Like, and the thing is, too, that I loved that conflict. That like interpersonal adult relationship conflict, always makes me like when I was watching it, I was like, this is intense. I feel it in me, you know? So I wanted that to be in the movie a little bit more. And I wanted her to be angry and not just be kind of like the person that brings conflict to Walter and Gary. You know what I mean? She kind of just felt like she was just there to help them and not be her own person.
The way that she exists in this world, and the town that they exist in too, prior to going to Los Angeles, because they always call it Los Angeles and not LA, is it's like very like Americana, very like, it felt to me very Stepford Wives, very like nothing is real. Like, she is so perfect, and even like the outfits that she wears and like the way she does her hair and everything is very, very traditional of American housewives, right? And then the thing that I didn't like, the other thing that I didn't really like, is it felt like they were pitting Mary against Walter.
Yeah.
Right? For importance in Gary's life. And then by extension, even though like Walter is just like unaware of this conflict, like Mary fucking hates Walter. And so like when we're like, especially when we were talking earlier about like queerness and Walter's journey and everything, and to me, that felt really bad. Like, I don't know why we had to pit both of them against each other, because, like, the thing about, like, that's not the issue. The issue is just that men aren't bad about talking to other people or considering other people, you know? And so to pit both of them against each other, that felt really, really icky to me. You know what I mean?
Because there is a level of, like, I think 100% all of her feelings are justified, and all of Walter's feelings are justified in the same way, like in these moments of tension. But instead of addressing it, they just okay, and then that leaves it like, oh yeah, that's right, they were the conflict, like they hated each other. For me, like you were saying, Cole, how cute would it have been if we do see like her as a Stepford wife, like wearing all this stuff, her with that like kind of half smile, always like on the verge of tears, like really fed up. She has a song that isn't just Me Party. It is a song that sort of like expels the complexities of her feelings. Like, do I love you? Yes. Do I love your brother? Of course. Am I mad? Also, yes. Do I deserve this? Of course. Yeah. Am I justified? Yet, like have this moment of like, I'm allowed to feel this way, but I also know what it means to you. So I'm allowed to feel this way without having to coddle your feelings. And I'm allowed to exist, and I'm allowed to have my agency and my own importance in your life. Like a song that just like exemplifies all of these things. It really would have like realized her character in a big way, where like it contextualizes all of the shit before with her. And we get to see her really like speak her mind and speak how she's feeling. And then that also, I think, breaks the tension with Walter, because he knows it's not really about Walter. It's not even really about Gary. It's about her. And that's the important part, is everything else is about y'all. It's about me. And apart from just me party, it's I'm going to be happy and make myself feel good without making them feel bad. It's no, make them feel bad. But also, more important than making them feel bad, recognize, hey, I love you, and yes, but I'm also mad, and I'm frustrated. I can be all of these things at the same time. I'm allowed to feel all of these things.
She does have that one song and it's a verse in the bigger number, right? Where she's the gardener is spraying the window.
Oh yeah, that
right?
was very funny.
Which is so funny, and she kind of states how she feels, where she's it's always me and him, why can't it just be us? But then her well, one day he's gonna be my prince and he's gonna ask me to marry him and it's gonna be great. But just providing more context and a better avenue for her to express that, rather than just being just incredibly passive aggressive. It's been 10 years, girl, you have to break.
I love the number at the beginning of expectation of I know things are bad now, but they're gonna get better, so there's this hope. There's a place for her to go. Here she goes, she's gonna go find that hope. Things will change for her, and she's letting all this happen. She's because I know that one day things are gonna be good. But she doesn't get the payoff. She recognizes her bad situation, but she never gets that payoff. I'm you build her through this whole thing, and the entire time she is constantly helping, with everything. She saves the day, and at the end, it's literally, what is her prize? Marriage. What? No, he hasn't changed. Nothing has changed. You've literally had the worst vacation of your life, arguably.
You haven't even reconciled that, let alone the past 10 years of your relationship. But everything is fine now because I got a ring.
Married.
And he was and it's when Gary realized that oh my God, it's my anniversary, and he ran to the room and he's babe, I remembered, and you're what do you want, a fucking cookie? That's all I could think. And then he goes back and he's oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, and she immediately hugs him and is oh my gosh, all's forgiven. And I'm what? What?
It is.
I almost wanted one thing I feel no one has said, he lives with Walter as a 40-year-old man. They just live in bunk in two beds, they're
which kind of adds to the notion of a possible Arrested Development situation with the two of them, because there is this sort of history of kidness or of youngness that they both share, that they're we're brothers and we love our brotherly life, and it's well, he is, like you said, kind of nearly 40, and it's and that's great, and I love that they have that connection.
Well, and I almost wanted to because if Walter understands he has a separate life from Gary, he's kind of come to realize that. I wanted Gary to not leave Walter, but kind of do the reverse of what he has been doing for all this time, to maybe somehow prove to her that maybe he is willing to kind of make this change, because he doesn't at all. I wanted some sort of oh, Walter has this other big thing, or he maybe is you know what, I'm gonna miss Walter's big Muppet song or whatever, or I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna do that, so I can be with this girl, because
he doesn't really have any agency even in his own story, right?
No.
Gary is an ultimate support person, and he only has he has such a big heart, but he only has capacity for one person at a time, because he devotes his entire existence to this person, right? Mm-hmm. So it was Walter for the longest time, right? To the point to where that is then his identity. His identity is caring and nurturing for his brother, who he's worried won't be able to exist out in the ether, right? So that's where that whole big speech that we talked about earlier comes in, where he's okay, I'm letting go. But then what is he? What, he doesn't know who he is or what he is or what he wants. We don't get any of his motivations at all in this. His motivations are purely based on the relationships that he has with others. We don't even know what he does for a living or anything. We know what everybody else does, but he's just kind of hey, Walter, I love you, and I'm here to support you. I'm so supportive, and I love you. Oh, hi, Mary, I love you, and I'm so supportive, and I love you, and this is great. But so even though he's kind of stepped away from Walter, he's going to put all of that onto Mary, which if he's gonna do that, I don't think that's what she wants. I think she wants him to be his own person, and she she wants his attention, but not like that level of attention, you know? So, because like it's kind of unhealthy.
And I think that was the hope, at least for Mary, right? Like, she's kind of saying yes because she's like, hey, maybe this will like lead Walter on his path. And like, I'll finally have Gary. Like, it'll finally just be the two of us. Like, hopefully, but like,
they're still watching it while they're watching. They have the little mini TV, and it's like, well, what?
Yeah, we
set
don't.
that aside.
I feel like the conclusion is to sort of like out of context happy ending with the marriage proposal and like, you're a real Muppet and here's the ring and blah. And it's like, but there's so much you didn't finish. Like,
it also
you
feels
literally
like
left so much on the side.
It feels like he changes for a woman because that's what she wants and needs from him, which is great. But I think it would have been even more powerful if I mean, of course, we just talked about none of it was really resolved, but like if he changed of his own volition and not just because this is like that expectation was put on him, it just feels like he's going from one thing to another, you know?
Yeah.
Kermit and Gary are like basically the same person with how they treat others, you know?
Truly.
Like
they're the nice everyman, but niceness literally being like the key to their downfall. Like, you can only be so nice. Okay, but like, what do you actually want? And what do you actually mean? Stop being nice. Like, stop being nice to all these people. Be there for them. Stop just being fucking nice. Nice gets you nowhere for anybody. And it just leads to more problems. Like, you can be nice and do these things, but niceness as a base level is just completely unnutritious for anybody's development. Like, it does no good to anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I know we just talked about like some of the bigger, deeper story issues that we had, but ultimately I want to say that I absolutely love this movie. Absolutely love it. It is so funny in that same way that like the Muppets always have been, where it's just like there's this like really heavy moment and then like Fozzie is walking out of the theater with fart shoes on, and you're like, what are you doing?
I laughed so hard. Where they lost the money. Everything failed. They're done. The Muppets are never coming back. Nobody loves them. They hate themselves. Everything's dead. And it's just like... And it's such because like you saw him talk about his fart shoes earlier, and then it's like, of course, it's Fozzie's fucking shoes.
Of course,
that was such a it was the perfect Muppets joke. It was perfect.
So we are back from Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. We're going to Los Angeles.
The first film, so the original Muppet movie from the 70s, Eric, who do you think it was for?
It was for lovers and dreamers, and me is who it was for. 100%. Who do you think it was for?
I mean, fuck, that's who it's for. Yeah, no, I have nothing better because like Rainbow Connection is like the ultimate card to play for me, and I'm just like, yes, absolutely, that's it.
It's so
done.
Great.
What about you, Cole?
The first one, I don't know. I think it's for like people who just want to have fun and be themselves.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Did you like it, Eric?
I loved it. I think it is a triumph. I think it's so sweet and fun and cool. I can't believe I honestly I'm like so blown away by how much I really enjoyed it. It is such a good movie, like through and through. Rainbow Connection, obviously a bop, but like outside of it, meaningfulness, all of it. It's really so fun and so good and so sweet. Yeah. What about you?
Cole first. What do you think about?
Yeah, I love the original one. It's so cool just to like look back and see like how much of like that ethos I try to emulate in like my own art and everything that I do. I like with Muppets, it's just like, how can I even in the slightest bit like capture that like feeling of like joy and fun and the stuff that I make, and you know what I mean? Like I just really tried. That's like my pursuit, right? It's stuff like fun, good time, Muppets, laughs, cute, heartfelt, sincere, amazing for all ages. Like it's the best type of entertainment, really, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this one. And it's just such a treat to go back and watch some of these older Muppet movies because, I mean, for the most part, they really do still stand up and they are just so fun and funny and slapstick, and also like so incredible how they got some of those shots, like we were talking about like extensively about the car scenes with Fozzie and Kermit on the bike and everything. So like even from like that kind of standpoint, just like incredible that this exists in the way that it does, you know, just so fun, so funny, so feel good in a way that I feel like everybody needs, especially like the past 2 years, you know?
Oh, yeah.
It never gets stale because of the way it's presented. So, iconic. I love this movie.
Iconic.
Eric, 2011, The Muppets. Is this new and interesting or the same, progressive or regressive? How has the story evolved with today's ideals?
I thought it was new and interesting, but not necessarily in the positive way. I thought it was a new take because it is like a movie based on the idea of the Muppets IP as like this tantamount nostalgia. Like, we love this. This is so amazing. And like, that's the base. I was like, oh, that's kind of like new and interesting. I think that that's cool. Too many humans, too many people. Get them out of there. Muppets only. It's a Muppets film. Get out of my face. Yeah, I thought it was a little regressive just in the way that it tried to be a little bit more intense. Like, it didn't have to be. I felt like the Muppets, especially the Muppets movie, the Muppet Movie, the first one, it was so like effortlessly charming and effortlessly thoughtful, and like that's like the crux of what the Muppets feels like. And this movie had some of that, but it didn't feel the same. It felt like it kind of like missed it a little bit.
What about you, Cole?
I do feel like it was new because I feel like it was like a little fork in the lane, right? We were like, we're just gonna take this little detour and see what like more of like a high polished Muppets could be like. I don't know. It's kind of interesting to think like, can they make another Muppet movie again? Because like, I feel like there's a certain like lo-fi indie quality to like the original Muppets movie, and I'm like,
indie chill hip hop beats
for Muppets, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if they can ever achieve that like same charm again, because I feel like part of the charm is they like lightning in a bottle, like Muppets movie, like old, like trying something new, something fresh.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they made it. I'm kind of glad to see how that went. And I love the songs. And I'm interested to see kind of another Muppet movie, but I'd like it to be like another a parody and not like a Muppet movie. I want another parody movie, because I feel like that's
Great Gatsby. Here we come.
Literally, yeah. I feel like that's like where that kind of lo-fi dumb quality can maybe shine out a little bit more, is when basis of like silliness is already there.
When you think about like, I don't know, Muppets Christmas Carol is also one of my favorites.
I
like,
love that one.
Whenever they do an interpretation of like of an older story, or like, you know, like a classic, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because also when the stakes are low in that way from a story perspective, like the story's already there, there's so much more wiggle room to play and to be sort of more candid and a little bit more like open and flowy and playful, which is like where the Muppets thrives. Yeah, 100%.
There's so many parallels between like the first story and this story, and you know, in character motivation, in like, you know, how, in just how they treat each other and how they work together and what they want. That it was technically a continuation of that first one, because we still had the Big and Famous contract, we had, you know, all of that stuff, but it still at the same time managed to feel like a new introduction, which was kind of neat to balance both of those, I think. I feel like this movie was, it was new in terms of like a lot of like the production stuff and a lot of the quality, right? And I think some of that was really interesting paired with like a lot of that nostalgia where I was like, oh, this is the part, this is where it's going to happen. Like, you know, like I said, I cried when I saw them all, like, you know, the, that Muppet song. I was like, oh God. And I loved that. And I loved seeing some of the production around like these, like, you know, Rainbow Connection, these songs that I really love and remember. And it felt like the camera loved the Muppets whenever they were on screen, right? Like they found these really new and interesting ways to shoot the Muppets that I had never like really seen those angles from before, you know? And so to me, it made them a little bit more realistic or like grounded in the real in that film. So I loved that. But I do think that it was just kind of regressive, though, in its storytelling because of the things that we talked about, where, you know, I do think that the way that they treated the women in this film, also with it just being so classic Americana, like, to me, that was that kind of took me out of it, because what fucking city do we know, especially in Southern California, that is so stuck in the 50s, like, in terms of like the milkman and like, you know, like I get that you're going for that, but like with that came all of this weird conflict that didn't need to be there. Like Walter, this, like, you know, like you were saying, like, this is his coming out story. This is his like journey to that, right? And I feel like the conflict with Mary just really took away from that and really kind of like centered her and Piggy in this way that it felt a little bit messy, and I feel like that could have been handled a lot better. But yeah, it felt so classic that it felt regressive, if that makes sense, because not only was it aesthetically classic, which can be really cool and really fun, but in these tropes that, you know, the women fall into, and people of color, or, you know, and by people of color I mean like the Muppet version of the Muppets, right? Because there weren't a lot of people of color in this movie. That to me felt a little bit regressive. But as far as like evolving with today's ideals, nostalgia sells, right? And while I do think that nostalgia was done very well in this film, Muppet-wise, I think the nostalgia, it suffered from the nostalgia of that classic Americana mindset and aesthetic that really didn't like have a place with like going to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Eric, who is this for?
Oh, fans of the Muppets. It was 100% like, it was for people who have a history with the Muppets, like Muppet heads, as it were. I think that Muppet heads, yeah.
R/Muppets.
Yeah, it was for R/Muppets, exactly. Yeah, that's what I think it was for. Who did you think it was for?
Obviously, Muppet stans who maybe are older and kind of looking back, so maybe some parents to go with their kids to see it, sort of deal. I think maybe some of that, and also Amy Adams stans who just like are now in her back catalog and they're just like looking for something else and scraping at the bare bones, the end of the chicken, just like, oh, what else is there? Oh, I guess I'll watch Muppets.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I think that it was for Muppet stans 100%, and I think they were trying to introduce the Muppets to a whole new generation, right? Because whenever we saw like, you know, the families watching the telethon, it was the parents being like, oh, I remember this is great, you're gonna like this, and then the kids like, you know, laughing along with it, right? And then Selena Gomez coming in and being like, I don't know who you are, but like my agent told me to be here. So like recognizing that, like, because there's also that other joke that the hecklers say, which is like, half of our audience is dead. That's geriatric humor. Ha 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 ha. So it's like very aware that, like, you know, a lot of the people that grew up with the Muppets or liked the Muppets are maybe not here or have children, or like there's this whole generation that like does not have Muppets. So it was like a relaunching of the Muppets, right? So I think it was for Muppet stans and Muppets career. You know. Did you like it, Eric?
Sorry, take back. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I didn't love it, but I liked it a lot. I thought it was very good. I thought it was very fun. Again, the music, the story, like for the most part, I really did enjoy myself, apart from like some of the critiques that we had. Overall, I liked it a lot. Cole, what do you think? Did you like it?
I think I loved it, but I think it's just because I'm a Muppet stan, and I pretty much love everything the Muppets do. And like more Muppets content that feels like genuine and true to like the ethos of the original. I'm gonna eat that shit up. So yeah, I loved it.
100%. I'm right there with you. Look, I know we talked about some of the things, but, you know, Eric, I know that whenever it's a heist movie, you just kind of like overlook any of the problems or anything, like 100%.
Oh, yeah.
That's how I am with Muppets. 100%. Love this. Love it. I fucking walked down the aisle to like that first song, y'all. Like, I love this movie. It's so great. It's so fun. I still watching it. I've seen it so many times, and it's still just, it feels like a big hug. And I love that.
Gorgeous.
Well, that's it. Oh my goodness.
Is that it?
I think that's
Cool.
it. Yeah.
Cole,
Yes.
where can people find you?
Oh,
If you would like to plug anything.
Oh, you can follow my art Instagram. I have a couple things to plug, actually, now that we're doing this.
Hell yeah.
Cole Dupzyk _art. That's like my art account. I don't have a ton of followers, but I post stuff there every once in a while. Big animation guy, VizDev going up. And then me and my friend Ellen got our thesis film coming up called The Rainbow Dung Beetle. It's about a dung beetle who's rainbow colored but covers himself with poop and mud to hide from predators. Very gay story about its old dung beetle. That's coming up soon. We have some really fresh, fun Instagram content for that coming up soon. We got like character intros, the crew intros. We're getting like casting calls all up right now too. So that's Rainbow Dung Beetle film if you want to follow it.
That's awesome. I'm going to follow this right now. That sounds so fun.
Yeah, so you're going to have to wait till June or like the end of May 2022 for when the thing's done, but hopefully it'll be all worth it.
But it's coming. It's on the way.
No. Gay bugs. Gay bugs
are in. Gay bugs for 2022.
Love.
Gorgeous.
Yay.
Well, Cole, thank you so much for doing this. This was such a treat.
Okay, of course.
I'm so happy I watched these movies.
Yeah.
Thanks to you. Thank you for having us do this.
Yeah, of course.
I enjoyed this so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate you. Don't forget to follow us on social media. Artwork is by Eric Lefebvre, editing by Danny Barkley. And thank you again for joining us, Cole.
Of course.
Thank you, Cole.
Anytime.
And thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Jess.
And remember, stay cute.
And stay critical.
Bye.
Goodbye. This podcast has been brought to you by the NOTstalgia Network.
Visit thenotStalgiaNetwork.com for more.
Hey everybody, I'm Eric.
I'm Shelby.
I'm Jake.
And we are the band Lousy Advice from the Lousy Advice Podcast.
Come listen as we draft artist and genre-centric best of lists.
With the help of our closest friends.
These lists are canon.
And there's not a goddamn thing you can do about it.
From Misfits to Cher.
Green Day to Gaga.
Or Pup to Paramore.
Listen to the Lousy Advice Podcast now, or else.
Stream us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the NOTstalgia Network, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And don't forget that we are the band Lousy Advice, and this is our podcast, the Lousy Advice Podcast.
The Lousy Advice Podcast?
The Lousy Advice Podcast.